So, Bitcoin Oyate Initiative.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. What are some of the issues that you hope to accomplish with the Bitcoin Initiative?
Okay, well basically what we're working on doing is there's so much questions regarding regulation of Bitcoin. Nobody's quite sure what to do with it. So Congress and financial leaders are just randomly throwing regulations out there or attempting to just because. What we want to do is we want to bring Bitcoin to a internationally recognized sovereign nation, the Oglala Lakota Nation in Pine Ridge, South Dakota, and create a sovereign free market environment to allow Bitcoin to run free and kind of see what the challenges are going to be. Identify the security risks, identify the pros, identify the cons, and that way the Bitcoin community can all come together and we can mitigate these challenges because we'll know what they really are. And this will give us a chance to prove out what really the potential is for this technology.
But some of the hurdles, both of us have lived on the Pine Ridge Reservation, and we know that there's a lot of political red tape, so to speak.
Yes.
A lot of hurdles that needed to be jumped. What are some of the hurdles in the red tape that you think you're going to have to get through, if any, to get this project off the ground and started?
I think the biggest thing is going to be, education. Because so many times when you talk to people about Bitcoin, they give you this look like, huh? It's so new for our area. Education is mandatory on explaining this is what it is, this is what it can do. These are the security applications that make it more secure than using a credit card, and just the ease of use. Once people see how easy it is to use and the security factors, then I think the adoption for it as a legitimate currency will be even greater because you'll see the benefits rather than just hearing about them or listening to what world leaders think are the security challenges. We'll be able to actually see it, and the people will be able to see how effective this is as a medium of exchange.
So what are some of the things that the people that live there now, how are they going to have to adapt to the Bitcoin currency? Like, what are some of the things that they'll have to do in order to get Bitcoins to be able to spend in the places that accept it down on the reservation? Well,
that's the great thing. Getting Bitcoin is like really, really easy. You can go to a lot of great websites. You can go to like Coinbase.com. You can buy and sell Bitcoins there. I believe you can buy Bitcoins through BitPay. I can find out, I'm not quite sure, but there's several places online where you can buy Bitcoins. You can mine them. If you want to go that route, that's a little bit pricey depending on what you want to do investment-wise, but that is an option. You can go do like meetups and exchange them and buy them off of your friends and whatnot. You can go to, I think it's localcoins.com or localcoin. You can Google it and find out, but there's tons of places out there where people can buy and sell Bitcoin.
Now, some of the, are you going to do any kind of formal or informal training to teach people how to mine for the coins or to go and purchase the coins? Or, what I see is, especially with the elderly on the reservation, because they're not computer savvy or gadget savvy, they might have some problem in understanding what the Bitcoin is about and what the
grab my bag real quick.
What the Bitcoin is about. So I think there's going to have to be some sort of training or informal training of some sort to help these guys understand how to use the Bitcoin, how to mine for it, how to get them to spend.
Yes. A lot of people have smartphones, so there's plenty of apps out there that they can use to do that. For the people that might not have a smartphone, or for like the elderly, like you were saying, a way to do it, in fact, I might have my assistant grab the middle, grab one of the piece of paper. Yeah. We're going to be working with these as well. These are,
so there's some back here.
These are basically paper wallets. You actually can load Bitcoin. These are actually designed for Litecoins. but you can actually load Bitcoin onto these and send them for, well, it's Christmas time. It's a great way to send Bitcoins to people for the holidays.
Also, this is almost like a gift card or something.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
a gift card or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a lot of other companies out there. I think it's BitCard is working on ways for people to have them if they don't have a smartphone or might not have service or whatnot. And a lot of it, like you said, is education. We're going to be spending a lot of time with consumers and merchants and pretty much anyone that wants to learn. Another great resource for people online is weusecoins.com. Weusecoins.com is not owned by anyone. It's a website that was put up specifically to educate the public about Bitcoin. It has some great videos on there on Bitcoin technology and the basics of it. And I think one of the biggest things is, initially people think that this is only a mining project. It's not. The coins that we generate through the mining aspect, those coins are going to go towards trading education, where we're taking young people that want to learn about how to trade on the exchanges, how the exchanges work, and we're going to be using those coins to help them get started, trading hands-on. So once they're comfortable with it, if the tribe wants to say, well, we want to invest in Bitcoins, we want to have a position in the market, we want to, use this, we'll already have traders that are trained, so they've already done the goofs and the oopses on, coins that we generated from the project, so they're not risking tribal funds. So they'll be able to manage, 1,000 Bitcoin account with these because they already know what to do and how the market and how the exchanges work.
No, you keep getting exchanges. So on the reservation, will there be an exchange available to the people there on the reservation?
Yes, we are working on making a local-based exchange, and we might. There's talks right now about tying that into the tribal casino, so people could either, like if they have Bitcoin or they have the paper wallets, they could go to the casino and either exchange it for cash right there that they could play. They could exchange it for gift cards. They could, all kinds of stuff. If they want to buy Bitcoin, we would have an office there where they could come in and say, hey, I want to buy $50 worth. We could set them up that way.
Okay.
Question from the second interviewer. There's a third way of getting Bitcoin. If you, it's called mining. It's at 10 mining, but when on my research, mining, you're calling getting Bitcoins mining. People can buy another. Define more how that is the third way to get a Bitcoin without buying it. It's through verification, which is called mining. They can buy. That you're talking about devices they could buy, and these older computers that are now being antiquated can be equipped to run these devices. Elaborate more on what those are, how those work, and how mining, what the word mining and verification do mean the same thing.
Well, mining, I think how mining started, out there in the community, if I got this wrong, send me a tweet. I think how mining started as a term is, as they were doing these calculations, they were discovering Bitcoin, so it just kind of was like mining, and that's how that kind of stuck. What you're actually doing is you're auditing the transactions on the network, so you're making sure that the transactions that are going through correctly and it's verified. So you're not really mining. What you're doing is authenticating, the transactions. But it's an easy way for people to kind of identify, and it doesn't sound quite as techy for the layperson. But yeah, a lot of, most Bitcoin mining now is done through ASIC chips, which is application-specific integrated circuit, and a lot of those systems are kind of pricey. However, there's a lot of altcoins like Litecoin, which can still be done through GPU and CPU mining. So people with older systems can still, be involved with it at a, with a different coin structure. It basically runs on a different algorithm. It runs on the script algorithm. So people with older systems that want to use them, to be involved with it, still can be involved. So it's just a matter of finding the right flavor coin for what you want to do.
A follow-up, more to define the question, I guess. Some people, by verifying it, they get a sense of a Bitcoin is a fraction. They get a fraction of everything they verify till they get a Bitcoin, correct?
Well, the way it works is they get, there's these little fees that you can pay to have your transaction, audited much more quickly. And most people do that just to support the community, and that's what the miners get. The miners get those fees and they split them up with how it works. And since you're doing all these transactions like really super fast, it adds up really, really quickly. So, and since a Bitcoin can be divided down to 8 decimal points, they're called Satoshis. Basically, it's like a millionth of a Bitcoin. But that's what makes it so great, because if Bitcoin were to reach, $100,000 per coin, you'd still be able to buy an apple that might be like 75 cents. You'd still be able to buy it with, a Satoshi, because of the fact that it would be able to be divided down 8 decimal points.
Is there a lot of Bitcoin? I mean, will Bitcoin ever run out?
Well, it won't necessarily run out. The way it works is, when they started this, the reward for finding a block was 50 Bitcoins, and it will have itself every milestone. There's different milestones when it reaches a point. So it goes from 50 Bitcoins to 25 Bitcoins to 12.5 Bitcoins, on, and it'll eventually hit. It's not really a wall that it hits, but it will eventually get to where it will be so minute that it really won't do anything. But at that point, the fees associated with transactions will surpass what the mining reward, the block reward, would be. So 21 million Bitcoins is all that will be in existence. But still, with the fees and the Satoshis that you make from doing the auditing, that'll still make up for what what the block would have been, the block reward would have been.
So have you gone down to the reservation and spoke to some of the different businesses and places on the reservation that will have to be set up to accept Bitcoin?
Yes, I actually spoke with a lady at Common Ground, I believe. Shouts out to Common Ground, you guys. I am going to go back down and do a more in-depth educational seminar and sit down with merchants and explain, this is how you can accept Bitcoin, this is what it can mean for your business as a optional payment system. And so far it's been really, people are really excited about the idea.
Have you got a lot of positive feedback?
Yeah, and what's really cool is you don't have to be, you don't have to set up like a merchant account with anyone. So I know on the reservation we have a lot of people that are really, really micro entrepreneurs. We have people that set up with Rummage, and they can use Bitcoin simply by setting up a wallet. If they have a smartphone, they can set up a wallet. If they can use paper wallets if they don't have that. Bitcoin is really, really adaptable, and where there's a will, there's a way.
So you're going to have it to where they can go purchase like a tank of gas from Big Bats.
Yeah.
Using Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And how would that work? Walk us through a transaction of using Bitcoin to purchase something such as fuel or groceries or something like that. How would that work?
Well, it could be done in a few ways. One, like Big Bats could have a QR code on the counter. They could ring up the price, and this is what it would be in Bitcoin, and a person can just take their smartphone and send it directly to that address. Another option, depending on how far this goes, the fuel pumps could be designed with a Bitcoin reader installed, so they could just pay right there at the pump.
It's almost like the tap and go credit card thing, but it'd be
exactly.
Just scanning something.
Yes,
okay.
exactly.
I had to interject a question here. As we all know, the reservation is is a hop, skip, and a jump away from the city of Rapid City. And with the giant scandal that had previously happened, aka Silk Road, and as we all know, the city of Rapid City is changing, but still has a lot of people that are not really native friendly, and they're changing, but at a very slow rate. How do you so if I were, how do you feel with the Silk Road scandal being, saying that they were hiding the coin, and many people here believing that the native population will use this for criminal activity?
Well, see, that's always been the big, controversy. Silk Road was kind of a rogue element. Bitcoin was not designed for criminal activity. Anytime you have any kind of payment structure, of course you're going to have nefarious people that are going to exploit that for their own means. The biggest currency for the drug trade still today is the U.S. dollar. But you don't see people abandoning the U.S. dollar except for us. But see, when the community comes out and takes a stand about we don't want what we've built to be used that way, the community, most of the people I've talked to, while understanding that the Dread Pirate has the right and freedom to have sites up there, when you use bitcoins for illegal purposes, it impacts the community as a whole. So I think Silk Road being taken down was a positive step because it showed us one more flaw that we got together and we're saying, hey, it's removed, it's not going to be used that way. And it's brought up a lot of challenges as regarding tracking Bitcoin. Should these be tracked? Should transactions be flagged for specific accounts? There's been a lot of cases where exchanges have been exploited, and that's our camera person. And do we need to find ways to monitor where our Bitcoins go to retrieve them if they get stolen? But then you kind of have that big brother shadow, and that wasn't what Bitcoin was designed for. It was meant to, so we had true freedom for things. So it's really exciting because the community all get together and give input as to what they think should be done. And there's arguments and there's discussions, but all in all, the community comes together in this kind of hive mind to figure it out.
What are some of the things, what are some of the hurdles and things that you've had to go through so far up to this point to get Bitcoin even, going on the reservation? I mean, is there some hurdles or some things that you've had to do to get to where you are right now at this point in time?
Well, the biggest thing, again, has been education. Everyone sees it on the news, and they hear about it, but they don't really know what it is. So the big thing has been, educating people about Bitcoin, educating people about, how the mining process works. And people ask, well, where do they come from? How are they made? And that's why we put the mining element into the program, so we can show people hands-on. And it's also meant to teach, basic encryption, algorithmic mathematics. Actually, you're going to be talking to Oglala Lakota College about an idea for a basic algorithm course. So people would be able to actually learn and research the science behind this. But those have been the biggest challenges, I think, is just getting to people to understand that this is an actual currency. It is total next generation stuff, and getting it out there. We've had donations to come in that have helped with getting a lot of things done. I really appreciate all the donations, all the emails of support, all the offers of support that people have sent in. I've had people that have made challenges. Hey, did you think about this? I don't think this is going to work, and this is why. I like those emails because somebody outside the box might think of something that we didn't. So that gives us always something to think about. Like, oh, did we factor in this? Oh, we didn't. Okay, well, we need to. But so far, I would say probably 98% of the feedback has been all positive. One challenge I had recently was from a guy from my own reservation in Lame Deer, Montana, that had made a comment about, what is this, I mean, what's this gonna do for the res? And I think that's one of the bigger challenges, is to break through that mentality of, oh, I have to have, you know, this dollar bill in my hand, you know, and breaking past that fiat dependence, you know, to say there are other payment methods out there that do not rely on the US dollar, that don't rely on a central banking authority to tell us what's valuable. You know, we rely so much on Facebook and magazines and TV and movies and Hollywood, everywhere else to tell us what's important in our life. You know, Bitcoin is kind of the anti that. We decide what's important. Good case in point, Dogecoin. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This guy made it up basically as a joke. You know, it has a little dog on it and little memes associated with it. But the community got behind it and said, hey, you know, this is pretty cool. This is valuable to us. You know, so the whole community come together and we decide what's important. We decide what has value and what doesn't. We don't need Hollywood to do it. We don't need the Federal Reserve. We don't need President Obama. We don't need Big Brother telling us. You know, we think for ourselves. And that's, I think, key for a lot of this. I think it's key just for humanity in general.
So are you going to try to do away with the dollar bill on the reservation and only go with Bitcoin as the #1 source of currency?
Well, that would be ideal, but we're always going to have people that use dollar bills. And see, that's the thing. Again, just with my previous statement about freedom, you know, people need to be free to be able to choose the currency that they find important. So if it's the dollar, then by all means use the dollar. But, you know, have you looked at Bitcoin? Have you seen the benefits of using Bitcoin versus using, you know, the US dollar? What a lot of people don't understand is when you get paid in US dollars, once that hits your bank account with inflation the way it is, your paycheck just took a hit. It's worth less sitting in your bank than it was before you got it. Bitcoin actually increases in value. You know, so you actually have the ability, so, you know, you might get paid in Bitcoin and then 24 hours later, it's worth 5% more than it was when it hit your account. You know? And I think kind of to echo something that Adam Korkesh said on Adam versus the Man, when the average wage slave is able to get his weekly or bi-weekly paycheck in Bitcoin, and he fully understands that, you know, I can get paid in Bitcoin and I can actually, that will increase in value rather than decrease, at that point then the dollar is fucking done. When people say, I don't want this, the dollar is done. But there again, it's like, again, we choose what's valuable. You know, it's not, I mean, we don't need Ben Bernanke or whoever the Fed puppet is for the day to tell us this is what you'll use.
Now, are you worried about hoarding? You know, is there such a thing as a Bitcoin millionaire?
Oh yeah, there definitely is. You know, but see, hoarding isn't really an issue because of the fact that, you know, yes, there's people that have positions in Bitcoin and they'll hold on to it. But I mean, people are still using it on a daily basis. It's just a matter of, you know, showcasing it as a currency and, you know, stimulating people to say, hey, you know, spend it on this, do this. One thing that could be done is making it so that Bitcoin pricing might be, you know, lower. You know, you might have something that's like $5.50 in US dollars, but actually it's only $5 if you use Bitcoin. You know, you could actually give a discount for digital application.
To encourage people to use the digital form of currency.
And that's, you know, kind of lends an interesting side to kind of think, are countries actually out there doing that? You could really impact a nation's economy if you were to say, hey, we'll give you a discount if you use our currency versus theirs. And they've been doing that for years. So again, it gives the world, kind of shines the spotlight on the fact that this is how things, you know, happen out there in the world, and kind of wakes people up. But yeah, I think, you know, if the tribe embraces this totally, which so far we've gotten, like, again, just tremendous support. I would love to see Pine Ridge, I would love to see all independent tribal nations become primarily using cryptocurrencies. You know, some might use Litecoin, some might use Bitcoin. You know, we've got a Maza coin coming up soon. I mean, could you imagine if all they use, they just said, hey, we're going with cryptocurrencies. That's our basic coin of choice. That's our currency. Like here in America, if you use, you get like Canadian quarters or whatnot, someone might take them if they don't look at them, but you know, most of the time they're handed back to you. You know, I think that's going to be a real impact when people come to visit the reservation and they say, oh yeah, here, and they'll say, oh, sorry, we only take Bitcoin. You know, and then they realize they have to go and get it exchanged and come back. And there again, the dollar is going to take a major hit because people are waking up to the fact that the US dollar and all fiat structures have inherent flaws in them.
Is there going to be such thing as Bitcoin banks?
Well, that's another interesting thing because actually really there's a lot of places that are online wallet services. BitcoinEra.net, Coinbase, blockchain.info, all of which are really, really great wallets, but really all they do is they hold your Bitcoins for you. Bitcoinera, you actually get you know, a return, you know, you get an interest rate on them. So far there's been a few places that have worked on the interest rate part, and there's some places that loan Bitcoin out, so there's different elements from the banking world that come into play, but I don't know if anyone's really done an actual bank yet, but that definitely would be an interesting concept, you know, to work on.
Personal, extreme personal question. It's been quite obvious. I've been working with you for a long time. You're very much a traditionalist when it comes to media and tribal beliefs. And now with Bitcoin coming out being so different, how has it been changing your life in trying to explain what Bitcoin is from the old traditionalist? So what change will have to happen to keep the tradition? Is there any traditional issues that will change, or will it stay the same?
Well, actually, surprisingly enough, Bitcoin and tribal, you know, our tribal customs fit together great. I started on this journey of discovery, you know, when I was 16. I realized that, you know, we had issues on the reservation, you know, extreme poverty, and everyone's seen a lot of the things that have been going on. And I knew that if you want something different, you got to act different. So I went out and actually studied, you know, finance and politics, all these different fields, and I knew that technology held a very, very strong key to the future. You know, all of us are on Facebook. You know, I mean, I think probably one of the biggest profiles for Native Americans on Facebook that really embraced technology is Chase Iron Eyes. I mean, every time you see Chase, he's texting someone, he's updating, he's doing all this. I mean, he'll be at an event and he'll be like almost, you know, broadcasting it live while he's, you know, doing it. I think he's the only native speaker I've seen that actually simultaneously gives a talk and texts at the same time. But anyway, we have the ability to, you know, grasp these things, and I think as our culture changes, we have elders that understand this, but they have to be able to say, okay, and address the young people and say, look, we need you out there learning this stuff and figuring out how we can use it, how can we benefit. One case in point is there's been talk about using open outcry trading pits for areas like China, where the Chinese government has stepped in and said that they're banning third-party payment processors, so you can't buy Bitcoin traditionally the way you used to in there. The banks can't deal with it, so you can't get it there. But it's okay for people to trade it back and forth. Well, here again, since, our Native American culture, we always would sign back and forth to each other. Using that combined with like the Chicago trading floor's open outcry system, we can sit there, and for people that don't know what open outcry is, if you remember the Wall Street movies and anything like that, it's the crazy hand gestures that they're using. They're doing that. They're signaling to each other, buys, sells, number like 5, 9, 6, so the hand gestures go really, really well with our traditional signing culture. So it's really, really a unifying type of thing. And Bitcoin crosses all boundaries with culture. Bitcoin doesn't recognize, oh, well, you're Lakota, or you're Russian, you're German. I mean, it doesn't see that because it simply is. People can interpret it however they want. They can use it in their language and cross borders with it.
So you don't have to worry about the exchanges, and like when you go to Canada, you have to exchange U.S. currency for Canadian
Exactly.
currency and vice versa.
Yeah.
What are some of the future plans that you see in the future for Bitcoin? I guess adapting Bitcoin. Do you plan on starting with Pine Ridge and then using this as a stepping stone to get it onto other reservations around the country?
Definitely. We're going to build this up in Pine Ridge, and once we have it built and everything's working good, we're going to share the data out with everybody. And if another tribe wants to come in and say, hey, we want to take part in it too, we'll go over and rebuild the same thing there. We'll rebuild the same thing anywhere. And once we've proven that it'll work here, then we can all get together and go to like the Philippines and go to some of the areas that have been impacted, like with the typhoons and whatnot, and go in there and help rebuild the businesses and rebuild them not only through Bitcoin donations, but we can help build up and rebuild their business by saying, look, why don't we implement Bitcoin while you're working on your payment processing system? So now they'd have it right there, as part of their rebuild. Bitcoin is going to change the world. We're just, the term in Lakota is Ikche. It means common man. And I think that's, a really good thing about Bitcoin, because it allows Ikche to be at the same level and get involved, without having to go to, Harvard or Wharton or Yale. So it brings everyone back to kind of an even point. So again, it breaks down, borders, so you don't have that distance between the classes. Here's
a question to both of you. I'll change it to both of you. She is actually directed at you, Payu, but I'll change it to you, the other interviewer. I want to address the fact of how the tribes have their own sovereignty to be their own country, but have seemed not to have used it. And in photos, so many people there's so many Native people, there's a new photo on Facebook talking about how Pine Ridge is camp such and such, and people are identifying to that. Payu, you personally, you seem to be offended by that, and you have been a great advocate for being sovereignty and telling all these governments we are our own government. And there's been several other tribal members that have said, no, we don't have this right. And it's always, listening to your conversations is really interesting sometimes.
Thank you. Well, it goes into that, colonized mindset. We've gone through decades of oppression, and now that, it's a whole new era, and, the new current non-native generation is trying to, say, hey, look, why don't we just be, we're advancing, we're growing, but we have elements on the reservation that, I don't know if it's just, fear or just complacency, but I do know that if you're making $68,000 a year as a treatment coordinator, and you don't have to do anything, and you barely have a high school education, you're not going to want to give that up anytime soon. So when you talk about change and we need to, go forward, that's a scary concept. I understand that this type of technology, as revolutionary as it is really scary because we are a sovereign nation. We have like the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty, which is an internationally recognized, treaty between the tribes in the United States. And the treaties are the supreme law of the land. In fact, like my uncle Floyd Ham says, 1868 is the law, and it is. It's international law. But when you get your program funding from the federal government, when your tribal government is almost entirely funded through federal subsidies, there again you have, the outside forces telling you what's important. They're telling you, this is how you're going to do this. We're paying the bills, you're going to do it this way.
Or we're going to stop paying the bills.
Yeah, we're going to stop paying the bills. And that's, I want to be there, and I'm going to invite Charlie Strem and Alex Korkesh and Max Kaiser and all of them to be there the day when we can turn around and tell the Bureau of Indian Affairs, we're using Bitcoin, take your fiat currency and stick it up your ass. We don't need it.
Yeah.
You can, I guess, bleep all that out. But I mean, I think this definitely has the ability to do that. We don't need other people telling us what's important and telling us how to do things.
Well, I think the people have been so used to getting tribal or federally funded that it's hard for them to think of what it would be like without the federal funds there to support them. So we have to get people out of that mindset that they need the federal money in order to survive, in order to make it. They need that money, and they don't. Mm-hmm. Me and you, this is kind of getting off topic a little bit, but me and you have gone and had viable, successful businesses on the reservation.
Yes.
And, have done it without any kind of help whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, the businesses that we ran were based on 100% luck, because of the fact that we did not have those preconceived ideas on how things are supposed to be done. I'm in touch with the guys from VisionMan, BTC.com, and they're donating a few things technology-wise. And here's one thing I think is good. Imagine if we had a 50 terahash auditing cluster, and that was making a sizable, income. If a program were suddenly like, well, our federal funding is going to run out, what do we do? A mining group or a mining cluster could be directed towards that program for a specific length of time to make up that funding. Okay, we need $100,000 this year. Okay, and allocate it towards funding that. Social programs. Again, Bitcoin has the ability to come in and impact all of this. It's like, I hate to say it's the cure-all, end-all, but in a lot of ways it is. People are waking up to the reality of fiat currency, and they're saying, okay, well, if this doesn't work, what else is out there? Well, we are.
So, Brett, I have a question for you. Now that you're sort of new to this conversation, and you've lived your life under the rule of the federal government, the Federal Indian Act, the prison camps, and all that. With this new technology, how does that make you feel?
That it's time for a change, and that there is a change that could be made to implement something other than what people are used to. Kind of like what I was saying before. People are so used to that mindset. Some people are so used to that federal money that they're afraid of anything different or anything, a change of any kind. Once they're shown that there can be something different that can be just as good, if not better, I think that it's going to change a lot of people for the positive. Not only with the Pine Ridge Reservation, but also the other reservations, and eventually worldwide. So I see it as being a good thing and something that, you know, needs to happen, so.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I was going to mention is for a lot of people that don't understand the prison camp reference, the Pine Ridge Reservation, the Pine Ridge Agency was it was a military prison camp for our people, but that was like in the 1800s. But a lot of us go back to that because, you know, historically that was the fact, but it doesn't have to be that way anymore. A lot of people use that, I don't know, I don't want to say sympathy, but we need to, you know, get past all that. We need to go forward, and we need to realize that, hey, we have the future in front of us. You know, a lot of people put this on the non-native community, and specifically the white community. And I think in the 1800s that was a viable argument. You know, back when the Indian Wars were going on, it was, we could say, yeah, it's your fault. But you know, it's 2013. If we haven't got off our ass to do something for ourselves and for our own people, that's our problem. We can't put that on anyone else but the man in the mirror. And this, again, is a chance for us to show the world we have the ability. I mean, the Northern Cheyenne tribe and the Lakota bands, all 7 of them, along with the Arapaho, were the ones that historically beat the United States military at the Battle of Little Bighorn, along with other battles. But we're the only ones in history that can say that we have successfully defeated the United States military on more than one occasion. And it wasn't just one battle. We forced the American government to come forward with a peace treaty and say, hey, we've had enough. You know, we want peace. No one in the history of the world that I know of has ever been able to do that to the Americans. And now we're getting ready to do it again with Bitcoin. We are going to force the fact that Bitcoin is a viable currency for our area. If you don't want it in America, that's fine, but your boundaries end here. This is our area, this is yours. Our area, tribal law, takes precedence, and we will use Bitcoin because it works.
One last question. There's a video series that's been started by IGM Productions. It's been interviewing such people as elected official Kevin Killer, J.R. LaPlante, and now we've had Floyd Hand of the Treaty Committee, of the Treaty Council. And in there, there's been one commonality in there, which has been education. And with such people such as J.R. LaPlante and Floyd, is the Christian values have diminished Native values, but Floyd referenced that a little more to say that education is important, but to think with the left and right brain, because give and take is part of the deal. There's glasses that you get glasses, cars are from the white man, the Indian gives, and certain white people are starting to turn back into the cultures. What, as Native people growing up, do you believe, as just people, are very important to the 7th generation now in school?
I don't know, that's, I think about that one.
Okay, well, he's exercising his brain. You know, we are the 7th generation, and I think it's important to, you know, understand our history, understand our past, understand where we've been so we can plan and plot out where we're going. Again, we have to, you know, look past the historical traumas of the past, remember them obviously, you know, have reverence for them, but use them to build a foundation for the future and future generations.
Well, we need to improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was like one of the big things with the ambulance service.
Yeah, back in the ambulance days, improvise, adapt, and overcome, and I think that's what our generation needs to do, is improvise. We can't base everything on the past. Like you said, we have to remember it, of course, and, you know, respect it, of course, too. But it's time for a change. I mean, this is 2013. It's time for a change.
Yeah, and there again, I think the Bitcoin community as a whole is really good at that. Like, when they, like with the paper wallets, one person brought up the fact that, well, what if you don't have a smartphone, you don't have a laptop? You know, you've got, you know, paper wallets, like that one right there.
Yeah, but can someone steal this from somebody else?
Yes.
But what I'm saying is it safe?
Actually, the way these work is the fact that on one side it would say like load and verify, and someone would go and they, they.
Oh, so it has a spin side and a verify
Yeah.
side, okay.
And then the spin side is the private key attached to that account. So these are paired together. So like this one would be different from that one, which would be different from the one that Mike put up there, which will be blanked out, so nobody tries to get anything out of it. But, adapt to overcome. For the people that didn't have a laptop, didn't have a smartphone, we adapted, paper wallets. Like in China, where they won't be able to use third-party payment processors. People can load, Bitcoin onto paper wallets or onto their phones, and they can travel there and set up, open outcry trading pits and still trade with each other. So the whole system is designed and is open source. So if people see something wrong, they can go and modify the code and become, a new update. Updates come out all the time, and people, identify issues, and they adapt to them, and they work together to overcome them.
So I guess my final question would be, and we need to wrap this up, where do you see this project a year from today?
A year from today, I would really like to see Bitcoin and pretty much just cryptocurrencies in general be the norm for the reservation. So, for the average tourist or for the Bitcoin community that want to come to the reservation to kind of see how it is, they can know in full confidence that they can bring their Bitcoins and they'll have places to use them. And just have Bitcoin take its rightful place alongside, other currencies as, a legitimate method of trade.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool.
Cool. I think I'm starting to run right tape on the system.